Alright, so foundational rhythms. An easy way to think about this is that we are animals, and that all animals that get up and basically live their lives in the day and rest at night, they basically follow a foundational rhythm. They get up around the time the sun comes up, move around a lot, and then over the day slow down, go to bed, and have their rest at night. I'm in no way suggesting that everyone, adhere to that strict rhythm, but our culture and our conditioning basically, more than ever in human history, tells us to ignore that inherent animal part of us and dance to the rhythms and tunes of culture. And while some of that may be necessary, the essence of it is something that the closer we can get back to the foundational rhythm of our own animal nature, the healthier it will make us, because that has been around a very long time, created by nature itself, which has, as I'm sure most people could recognize, has its own intelligence to it that we only comprehend the absolute skerrick of it, or micro fragment of it at this point. So what I'm suggesting here is that after we get up, it's a good idea to move our body. And I know everyone has different capacities and capabilities with these kind of conditions, but within our limits, it's a good thing to get up and, stretch and move or take a walk or whatever when you arise, because it puts you back into that foundational rhythm. Likewise, we want to, hopefully be going to bed, at not too late of a time, and getting a good rest by the time we're ready to get up. And getting ourselves out of bright lights and screens and stuff, and before even that, not keep going as hard as we have been through the day at work or whatever, if we're doing that, and push that all the way through into the night, because the foundational rhythm is that the closer it gets to night, the less you do, and the more you run out of that go energy until you can drop into sleep and rest. So I know that it's hard for a lot of people with these conditions to exercise, especially, exercise every day, or, even at the same time a few times a week or anything like that. So I'm in a very fortunate position, actually, that I have a daily practice I do every morning. But this was very hard won. There was many years of trial and error and anguish, and I accepted help from some very intelligent people on how to build up to what I'm doing now. And I think that the thing I'd like to pass on the most about that is, I personally feel that what stops us being able to do the physical things we do that are exercise related, that make us feel better the most in these kind of conditions, is the breaking points, because it's very tricky to find when enough's enough. So how I've ended up in this position I am is by learning to recognize those breaking points. And it might not even be possible. I just could be in a lucky, privileged situation where it works for me. But the one thing I do know is that if you do some exercise and even if it's just you're taking a walk, you get to that point where you start to feel stuffed and you're just like, oh, whew, that's me done, and you can, that's a physical breaking point. That's your body going, you've pushed through your threshold, now your metabolism's going to change and adapt to that exercise you've done and give you the benefits you get from those activities. But that's a breaking point, so I've learned to become really aware of those in my life. When I'm moving house, when the things that are hard to do come. I mean, last time I moved house, I ended up injured anyway, but I had to do a lot in a short time. But because there's other types of breaking points for me too, like emotional ones and stuff, and it gets to a point where I'm like, that's it, I've had enough, need to withdraw. So I just thought I'd throw that in there. So yeah, foundational rhythm. A good friend said to me, often when we've got these kind of conditions, our lives have gone to chaos and disarray. And I know that was my experience in the past. And getting ourselves back into foundational rhythm, it's like taking consistent steps in the same direction, even if you don't find, big results quick and things like that. It's just those little steps that you keep taking towards your body's true needs that can enable things to get better. Yeah, so that's that. Some other stuff with regards to holistic lifestyle changes, mental and emotional development. This stuff, I believe I'm starting to get to a good place with this personally, but I don't know because anyway, I won't talk about myself too much. Mental development, I think with these conditions, like I said earlier, a lot of it is about taking how culture's told you should be, go, you got to do all these things, all that stuff, letting that go, and then taking on the awareness and knowledge of your own body's limits and your own connection to nature, and that the truth of what we are, that it's very deep and mysterious, and science doesn't understand very much and all that, getting back in contact with that. But that takes processing and letting go of old attitudes and adopting new, because you don't just wake up one day and go, oh, I get it, I still have times where I'm like, oh, there's all this stuff I want to do and I can't do it. And people say to me, oh, you're a great musician, you should be, making gigs and stuff. And I've got to the point in my life where I just know that I don't have the energy and the capacities to do that. So there's a lot of room for mental development in these conditions. So basically, so that our mind can match our situation, and we can be gentle with ourselves and compassionate and navigate our lives with some grace and stuff like that. And I'm just going to take a short break. Yeah, so the emotional side to the self-development is very essential. And it's different, I think the changing of attitudes and stuff like that, it's more kind of when you're in a state of emotional balance that you can do that easily. You're like, oh, because I was in one of those moods for a few days recently. It's like very inspired and things were changing very fast, you know. So what I was saying before, you know, about letting these attitudes go and taking new ones, that's all well and good, but the emotional stuff can be very hard with chronic conditions, because basically when the body doesn't have much good nutrition in it and it's been sick for a long time, the emotions can be very hard to move. So there's so many people doing so many different kinds of work these days on emotions and trauma and all that. And for me, it's an integral part of strategies for chronic illness, because looking at like attitudes that we've inherited and adopted from family and culture and stuff like that, or even shock and trauma we've experienced. So developing through those things and exploring them and giving them the time they need to be able to change is all pretty essential. And it's like emotions are a very central and core part of who we are as human beings. They're very deep. And I think particularly when you're looking at women, and particularly women who are mothers or even grandmothers, there's often development, because women are nurturers and caregivers. They're used to taking their own needs of what their body and emotions need, putting them aside, putting the needs of somebody else, exemplified by the child, first. So to be able to get beyond that, back to accepting your own needs first, there's like a journey that may need to be taken to learn how to develop balanced relationships, you know, in your life. It's a thing that not only I, but my close friends see again and again. And there is, you know, and there's something natural to women being nurturers and caregivers, obviously, but there's also our culture doesn't give them a very good context to thrive in, you know. So just thought I'd mention that. Okay, so what next? Probably food. Food is medicine, I think.